Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. Aspire has been inspiring women to live deeper, more authentic, and inspired lives since 2006. Did you know that after 19 years, Aspire is still a free subscription? And it includes dozens of transformational digital gifts from our supporters. You can grab your free subscription at subscribetoaspire.com. I don't know about you, but I identify as an empath, a sensitive, and intuitive. And quite often, empaths can absorb and feel the negative or uncomfortable energy of others. Can you relate? Well, I am so excited because we're going to be talking about this and so much more with my special guest, Sherrie Dillard. She joins me today to offer insights into the different levels of consciousness and how, through this awareness, we can choose the energy that we absorb and feel, which is so important, especially now. So let me introduce her and then we're going to bring her on in. Sherrie is an internationally renowned medium and medical intuitive who has given over 60,000 readings worldwide. She's the best-selling author of 11 books, including I'm Still With You, Communicate, Heal, and Evolve with Your Loved Ones on the Other Side. And her latest, which we'll be talking about today, Raise Your Frequency and Manifest Abundance, a guide for empaths, intuitives, and sensitives. Her books have been translated into 15 languages, and her writing has appeared in publications such as The Today Show blog, O Magazine, Oprah Daily, Om Times, Aspire Magazine, Huffington Post, and many more. She's also been featured on national television for her work with police detectives in the Stephanie Bennett Old Murder Case. You can learn more at sherriedillard.com. Sherrie, welcome, my friend.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this today.
Well, I've been really looking forward to it. One, I love the name of your book. It just resonates with me. But I identify as an empath, intuitive, and sensitive. And many of my clients in my personal audience, I got to tell you, they identify as one or more of them. So I was like, what a powerful time to be having this conversation. So for those who are going, I think I could be, but I'm not sure. What are some of the common characteristics of intuitives, empaths, and the sensitive?
Well, I guess the most common one, but there's lots of them really, but it would be feeling, knowing, sensing, intuiting, information that not just information, but since, all of it, just the ability to feel, see, hear more that others perhaps are not as attuned to, more non-physical reality phenomena. And in addition to that, and that can come very naturally, and sometimes we're not even aware that that's happening. We're just, we're like that as children. And so to us, it's normal to feel more, see more, sense more. And it can, we just have an expanded view of reality. And as we get older and, kind of, out there in the world and all, we become a little bit more aware that, well, maybe not everybody is aware of or sensing or feeling to the extent that I am. And sometimes that ability to live in that expanded reality comes with good, positive, life affirming energy. And sometimes it can also be confusing and cause us a fair amount of emotional stress or even pain. And that's a common characteristic also is empaths, intuitive, sensitives tend to really have a good heart, want to engage with others in a deep, meaningful way, want to be there for others, to help, to assist, to even guide others in some form. And it's so compelling, that urge. It's such a strong, innate drive that we have that sometimes that can expose us to people who would take advantage of that or look at it as an opportunity to, be more loved than maybe they felt like they've had in their lives and take a fair amount and expect that. And intuitive sensitives, empaths, we all also can absorb energy. That's probably one of the other main characteristics. We can absorb energy from people, from locations, because locations can hold a certain amount of energetic charge, especially if there was some big event or trauma or whatever that might be on a certain in a certain location, land. We can absorb that. We can absorb the energy of just an environment of walking into a room and what's the energy in that room of the people in that room. We can feel that, and sometimes it's a lot coming at us. So that sensitivity that we have, that susceptibility to absorb and receive energy, can feel sometimes so overwhelming that we tend to want to put up a lot of protection and guard ourselves from that. And, some of those different ways of doing that can be successful. They can definitely keep us in a more clear, open kind of way and yet still protected. And yet sometimes it can also lead to, I don't know, some fear even of, do I have enough protection? Do it, some empaths, intuitives, and sensitive will find themselves feeling more comfortable away from people, in their own room when they're teenagers, or staying home when maybe they want to do things, but they know that, a half hour, an hour in, I'm going to start feeling tired or worn out, or, um, just picking up too much, or my stomach starts to hurt. So, and again, there's lots of pluses of being an empath and intuitive and sensitive, but I don't think that we've developed that enough. I really don't feel that we've kind of harnessed our true potential and power in that. I don't think there's a lot of, um, just clear messaging in how that is, being that sensitive is kind of, I believe, a forerunner to how we are evolving, what we're evolving into. I feel like that it's inevitable that we all become more sensitive as we become more aware of energy. And I feel like we need to kind of maybe take a little bit more um harnessing our own energy in that way, in a positive way, in order to maybe lead others into that too.
Oh, I believe so. For me, I'm in my 60s. I wish I had the knowledge and tools that I have now in understanding myself than I did way back in my 20s when I didn't even understand energy and how I was reading a room, etc. And now I'm a grandmother of a 24-year-old Cancer, highly sensitive young man, and a 13-year-old, both of them amazingly gifted. She is extremely sensitive. Now, the difference between the two for me is the little one. I've been so involved in my own journey as a sensitive that I and my daughter have given her all the tools. So she is so tuned into her own needs and feelings and energies, where I can see I didn't have that guidance to guide him when he was younger. So we're doing it together as he's a young adult. Um, I wish every child knew how to feel their own energy. I think it would help them navigate life so much easier that because the world is, coming at them pretty quick. So I love everything that you just shared about some of the common characteristics. And one of the other things too is all the work that you do in the world, um, and you've written so many books. Every one that you put out, I'm like, okay, she has another one out. It's all to help us connect with the realms all around us, as well as the deeper realms within ourselves. So we have a few minutes before the first break. We have about 2 minutes. I just want to ask the question, what led you to this? We'll need a short synopsis before the next break comes up, but I'm really curious. Was it your own inner journey that led you to this work?
Yes, it was my own inner journey, and it was also, I think, a lot of us led into this work by almost a calling, I guess I'd say, or an inner awareness that this is where I need to be putting my energy, my effort, and pursuing, even sometimes not wanting to necessarily do this or to do the specific kinds of work we're doing. I mean, once we start, we recognize that, yes, that's where I'm meant to be. But initially, sometimes there is some reluctance to go into it too. But there is that, I think really it comes down to myself and probably others too, is just that's something internal moving, pulling towards that, kind of unknown in a way too when we first begin.
Mm, I got to tell you, that resonates with my journey. I never said or made a conscious choice, I should say, back in 2006 of, I think I'm going to start a magazine. I had
Mhm.
no desire. I had just, I had owned a retail business for 10 years, and it was an inner nudging that kept coming through in a dream, the exact cover over and over again of Aspire. And I was like, what the heck is this stupid thing? Keep waking me up in the middle of the night. And I just kept taking the next aligned step. And then next thing I know, she was born. And I do refer to Aspire as she because she has her own energy. She's her own gift to the world. And it was the inner knowing of, this is what you are being called to do. It doesn't need to make sense in the world, doesn't need to make sense in your ego mind. And it was kind of like a little adventure. So I love how you described your journey because it really mirrors mine. We're going to take a quick break, my friends, and I invite you to visit Sherrie, learn about all her books, but especially her new one, Raise Your Frequency and Manifest Abundance, a guide for empaths, intuitives, and sensitives. You can do so at sherriedillard.com. We'll be right back.
Are you feeling called to clear your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual blockages? That's your soul and environment speaking to you and asking you to uncover all the clutter that is preventing you from living the life you envision. Felicia Messina DeHady, soul coaching master practitioner and trainer and teacher of advanced interior alignment and medicine wheel feng shui, supports her international clientele by creating inner and outer transformation in their environments and their lives by combining elements from her extensive training, experience, and intuition. Felicia is a master intuitive coach, certified by Colette Baron Reed, and has served as a master mentor for Denise Lin's Elemental Space Clearing certification course, as well as her Ultimate Clutter Clearing. Explore her offerings, including certification courses in Feng Shui, space clearing, soul coaching, and Reiki at FeliciaDeHady.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me today is Sherrie Dillard, author of many books, including the recently released Raise Your Frequency and Manifest Abundance. So, Sherrie, I loved hearing your journey in unfolding to this work, and mirrors the energy of how I found myself doing what I'm doing in the world. So one of the things that comes up in all the conversations I have in my different communities, which as I alluded to, I have many empaths, intuitives, and sensitives in my communities. They always ask me, Lynn, how do you decipher the voice of love from the voice of fear? And that's a lot of the language I use. Love meaning it's coming from spirit, fear meaning it's coming from my negative Nelly mind, the chatter. So, how do we decipher the voice of the two? And how do we become better at listening to our spirit? I'd love your insights.
That's a great question. It's such a common question too, even with intuiting, just as learning intuiting is how to differentiate those voices. And I feel that one of the most accurate ways to discern the difference of what's coming up for you is to feel how your body feels in reaction and response to those voices. When it's a fear voice, when it's ego driven, it's going to be it's going to incite an emotion in you. You're going to feel it. It's going to incite even a stress or an anxiousness or thinking. The voice of fear and ego gets us into our head. It gets us into thinking. It gets us into going down the rabbit hole of what if, and I don't know. And if should I do that? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I could do it that way. We just go and go and go. When it's the voice of love, which I like calling the force of love, that's higher divine love, there's almost sometimes that voice will be, sometimes it's, comes through as a little chunk of information. Sometimes it comes through as just a whisper of just a word or two. Sometimes it comes in as kind of with a softness. Sometimes it comes in with more of a get to it kind of feel. However it comes in, however long and short the message is, it will always lift us into feeling more inspired, and we'll feel it more as an opening within us, as opposed to getting in our head and thinking. We tend not to get into too much of a thinking mode when we're connected to love. It's more of a listening mode, and it's sometimes more of a, yeah, tell me more. It lifts us, it opens us. We can feel more heart-centered with it. And my feeling is that the voice of fear, the voice of the ego is always going to be present. People will ask, well, how do I get rid of that voice? Well, you can't really get rid of it. It's always going to be there. We're biological creatures. We're, thinkers. We're always thinking. That mind of ours is always going. However, we can minimize it and not pay as much attention to it. And that's really what we need to train ourselves to do, is just to say, okay, that's inevitable. This voice is coming up to inspire fear, doubt, stress. Let me listen to the other voice. Let me just center myself. And I know that other voice is always present too. And that's the one I'm going to choose to listen to.
I love that. And for me, the first 30 years of my life, I had severe anxiety and depression. And now I look back and go, no wonder why I didn't know how to process the energy that was moving through me. And
Mm.
I got on the personal spiritual development path and really dove deep into understanding my own energy and the energy around me and how I personally process it. That all went away. But one of the things I love that you just shared for me is I had to learn to decipher, especially back in those days, when I was in the energy of the fear-based thoughts, right? Because to me, that was normal, where other people that wouldn't have been normal, but for me, it had been my existence. So I remember I said, okay, I have to ask myself, as I was learning to transition between the two energies of love and fear, is I would put my hand on my heart when those thoughts would come, the thoughts that made me feel constricted, less than, etc. I learned how to decipher and go, that's that voice. That's that one that makes me feel less than. This got to be fear. And I'd put my hand on my heart, Sherrie, I still do this sometimes and teach my clients. And when the thought comes, I go, I always use my first name. You have to use your first name. Linda, is this the truth of who you are? And when I do that, Sherrie, because I'm using my first name, it's almost like I bypass that busy brain part and my soul is answering. And of course, I hear, of course, that's not the truth of who you are. And I'm instantly able to shift back into my heart energy. Having processes like that have been so key for me to, I guess, recalibrate. So I know you teach so many processes, practices in your decades of doing this work. So is that a common question? You did share that it is a common question that people want to know, how do I know which one's leading the way? How do they know which one is leading their life? And you gave perfect examples for that. So thank you.
I love that exercise you just shared.
Oh, I do it
A
all the time.
wonderful
I,
exercise.
I just guided some clients through it. I go, listen, you're so used to listening to that voice as if it is the truth of who you are, but it's not.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the three main levels of consciousness. I'm really curious about this.
Yes. Well, I'll give you a little short synopsis of each one. The first level of consciousness, and we have many, many different levels, but for the sake of the book, just kind of compartmentalizing them, just to further understand them and to be able to identify them. The first level is kind of what we were just talking about with the voice of fear, the voice of the ego. And that in that level of consciousness, we are living in duality. We are living in a very finite view of what is. We're concerned with our five senses. We are that we can feel great and then we can feel really lousy. Things can go well and then they can bottom out. We can, every gain is followed by a loss. Every loss can then follow with a gain. That duality of right and wrong, um, up and, all of life being just kind of finite in what is able to basically what our lives are, what we're able to really, the possibilities are limited. It's a very material sense of consciousness on the first level. I call material consciousness because in order for and I these levels in the book are related to how we receive abundance. And in that first level of consciousness, that material level, what we do is we feel that we have to work hard for everything that we have. That in order to achieve, in order to receive abundance, we have to be clever. We have to have some advantage, whether that's socioeconomic advantage or education. We're competitive. It's a very competitive, material-minded way of life that, someone's going to possibly get that job over me. And so I've got to find my edge. I've got to be smarter. I've got to, whatever it might be, in order to receive. It's kind of it's stressful. Abundance on the material level is a very difficult way to receive. It's very stress producing, anxiety producing. And like I said, competitive. And it's very fear based too, because um, there's no there's no sense of abundance, really. There's no loving, higher presence, higher power. There's no flow in the universe that would come to us naturally. It's all based on we receive through our efforts alone. That's kind of the basis of material consciousness at the first level. And again, I just relate these level of consciousness to the theme of how we receive abundance. And then in the second level, we've advanced in the second level to the more mental, I call it mental consciousness, which is, and a lot of us have done this. I've done mental consciousness with abundance. A lot of us have. And that is working more through ideas, through the mind, through creativity, through drawing to us abundance through our thoughts. That's part of the basis of it, which is why I call it mental consciousness. And in mental consciousness, we receive through, if we are putting out positive thoughts, if we have affirmations. A lot of mental consciousness is based on visualization, affirmations, visualization of seeing in a very, real tangible images what we want to receive, thinking the thoughts we want that will, again, affirm that we are receiving. And the thing about mental consciousness is that it does work, just as material consciousness works. If we have, we are competitive. If we have all the things lined up, we probably will receive, but it's hard work and it falls away because it's duality. The problem with the mental consciousness, and again, this is something many New Age people work with, but the issue with it, because I worked with it for years, is that it's still based in duality, though, in the way that if our thoughts are not positive, then we don't receive. If we are not visualizing, if we are not working at it in that form, then we're not drawing to us what we want to receive. And it takes a fair amount of effort and consistency to do that. And it works. Like I said, it's definitely works. However, there's a different way. I think that we're evolving into that higher level of consciousness. And that's the basis of this book, is to inspire others to go into that higher level of consciousness beyond mental consciousness, although it uses some of the basis, some of what we learn in mental consciousness is also used in this higher level. But the higher level I call spiritual consciousness. And in spiritual consciousness, we receive abundance through our higher level of frequency. As we ascend more, our frequency, our vibration, our energy field into the higher realms of divine energy, where there is no duality, there's no time and space, there's only one power, one presence, and it has no opposition. And it always creates in our highest good because there is no opposition to the good, to the divine. And that divine creative energy is what has manifested and expressed as the earth, basically, the trees, the sky, all of us. We're all part of that divine creation at our core. And so it's to get to the root of that divine creative energy within us, because as we tap into that, our good naturally flows to us. And it flows to us always in our highest good, because it cannot not do that. It cannot choose to manifest in a way that would cause us issues or problems. It's always manifesting in the highest form possible. So at that level, I tell people too that one of the wonderful gifts of spiritual consciousness is that we don't have to work at being in spiritual consciousness all the time for it to work. Because there is no time and space in spiritual consciousness, and because it's not dependent on us, it's a power within us, but it's not dependent on who we are. It will flow into anybody's life, and all of us are that creative divine energy is within all of us. In other words, we can tap into that part of us, and in just a second of doing that, just a few moments in that higher level, and the good starts to flow into our life. It starts to manifest. That's all it takes. And so it's a path to that kind of abundance and freedom too. And I guess in a nutshell, that would be the way I would describe them.
I got so many notes here. I am loving this conversation. I've been dancing through all of them. So as you were sharing them, I can remember every segment of my life where I was in each of those. So we're going to take a real quick break, and then we're going to come back to continue this conversation, my friends. So stay with us. You're listening to my conversation with Sherrie Dillard, and she is the author of many books, but the one we're talking about today is Raise Your Frequency and Manifest Abundance, a guide for empaths, intuitives, and sensitives. Grab a copy and check out the rest of the work Sherrie's doing in the world at sherriedillard.com. We'll be right back.
Life quakes or life transitions and the aftershocks that follow are something we all experience. A life quake can stem from the heartbreaking grief that arises from the loss of a loved one or the disorientation felt when life suddenly shifts due to the loss of a job, relationship, identity, or health challenge. Learning to navigate these transitions with mindfulness, grace, and self-compassion is the key to finding your way back to joy, happiness, and inner peace. Advanced Grief Recovery Method Specialist and Certified Life Transition Coach Amy Lindner Lesser, MSW, expertly supports clients to navigate their life quakes and transitions with warmth, kindness, and grace. Learning to accept support as you navigate your way through the aftershocks is one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself. Learn more at introspection.com. That's introspection.com.
Thanks for joining us. I'm with Sherrie Dillard today of sherriedillard.com, and she just guided us all through the three main levels of consciousness as it relates to the topic of manifesting abundance. And it was material, mental, and spiritual. And, I was kind of giggling because I'm actually teaching one of my popular abundance activation play shops for the first time in person in 2 weeks here in Massachusetts. And it's about frequency, right? And aligning with the frequency and energy of abundance, which, as I heard you describe, that's the spiritual. It's the essence of who we are. I feel we've just forgotten that. And then when you were sharing the material, I went back to my early years. I was a welfare mom, so I had major money stories, right? And then I turned my life around and opened my first business with $2,400 33 years ago, and I've been an entrepreneur since. But I can remember thinking I had to work hard and I had to be something and do something in order to bring it in. And I used to bring it in, but then I could never keep it. And is that something you've heard too, that like that struggle of, oh, here it comes, I've got it. But then there's some kind of internal block where you could never keep it? Because that was my journey probably 30, 35 years ago. I could call in anything, miracles would come in. But then I was always on what I call the abundance roller coaster. Is that something you see a lot too, Sherrie?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. What do you feel energetically? Like I could call in, um, and still do, but now I'm able to keep it. Like miracles would come. People would, but then a month later I couldn't pay my bills. So I used to go like, what is this? So talk to us, because I know there's a lot of women. I write a lot in my private communities about, are you riding the abundance roller coaster?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, we have all three levels of consciousness within us.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are there all the time within us. As long as we're in human body, they exist. And you're absolutely right. That's part of what propelled me into spiritual consciousness, was that awareness that it's not just up to me, that there is something within me, there is a higher presence and power, there is that divine creative energy that is always producing, always manifesting. That is the consistency. That is the consistency. My feeling is that roller coaster is, I think, I feel like there's a couple reasons for it. One is, I think when we're opening the doors to, kind of like the way that you described it so well, where you were a welfare mother and you were, struggling with that. I think we all can relate to that. I know I can relate to that very, very much. I mean, I was, believe it or not, homeless for a few years when I was early 20s. So I understand that. Believe me, I understand it. Um, and I feel like when the synchronicities, when the abundance, when all of a sudden things seem easy, all of a sudden something shows up. And where did that come from? That was easy. That just kind of came to me. I feel like part of that is kind of like the little what are they a good metaphor for that is, those little crumbs that lead us to the bigger, it's little messages that we follow that spurs us into higher consciousness, that kind of invites us in, that we want to know more, we want to feel more. And so we move further and further into that awareness. And I feel like the other part of it is that again is inherent within a material consciousness. That's why I call it the consciousness of duality, because nothing is sustainable. In our material world, when you look at the material world right now as we speak, we know nothing is sustainable. Everything that we see now that appears to be positive and good, and we know that things are going to move into, we don't want it to happen, we don't want to believe it's going to happen, but good always follows bad and bad always follows good. And that's why that spiritual consciousness is so essential, because that's the only level of consciousness where there is no duality, where bad does not follow good and good does not follow bad, or loss and gain. Those two sides of everything don't exist in spiritual consciousness, because there is no duality in one presence, one power. There is only positive and good. It's not even positive, because at that level, there's no negative, there's no opposition to it. So it's not, you can't even say it's positive. All you can say is that it's always it's the only consistency we can count on, because it always flows and creates and manifests as the highest good.
Mm, I love that. And one of the symbols for me, as I was healing my money story many years ago, was given to me in a dream, and it was the infinity symbol. Now, we all know what the infinity symbol is, and I remember, asking for guidance. It was probably 20 years ago. And when that dropped in, I was like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do with this? Like I wanted to understand the frequency of abundance. And the infinity symbol in my energy field encapsulated the flow of abundance. It just is. We are part of the field and frequency of abundance. It's only when, and I guide my clients this, I go, take an infinity symbol, take your ego, take all your fears, and squish the middle of the infinity symbol with your fingers, in your mind's eye. I go, and when you're feeling crimped in your abundance, it's because somewhere within you, there's an energetic crimp in your own frequency that's stopping the flow. And then when I got that visual, I use it now to say to clients, like, where's your frequency? Are you in the divine flow just because it's the essence of who you are? And I have still to this day find that helpful because I'm a visual person. There's something else that's jumping right out at me in front of me for years. I have a quote by Deepak Chopra that just really spoke to me. So it's in front of my computer, it's in my energy field at all times. And it says, money is life energy that we exchange and use as a result of the service we provide to the universe.
Mm.
So I tell my clients, I go, my clients are not my abundance. My authors are not my abundance. I am my own abundance, right? So I don't need to look outside me. I must get clients. I must get whatever. I am abundance. So when I own that, it just flows in. Is that how you experience it too, Sherrie?
I have to say, I love the infinity symbol. The
Oh,
way
it's
you described
powerful.
that was just amazing,
It's
wonderful.
in
That
all
was
my
really good.
teachings.
Yeah.
And for those who are visual like me, I got to tell you, I've taught it at so many, I do hold soul camps virtual. And everyone said, "Oh my God, now I get it. When I'm out of flow, I'm crimping my own energy,
Mhm.
which is our connection to source." It really helped people. I mostly I serve all women. It helped them really see. And
Mm.
then it gives them a tool to use to go, "Oh, am I crimped right now?" Um,
Mhm.
so thank you for that because
Yeah, that's
you know,
just I love that. Yeah, that's so good.
it just really supports me. So we're going to take our final break and come back for the last probably 10-minute segment. And please stay with us because I am loving this conversation and I know you are too. Visit Sherrie at sherriedillard.com. All her other details are in the show notes on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We'll be right back.
There is magic within you and all around you. Sha Blackburn, internationally recognized psychic, shamanic healer, and teacher, known as the Loon Witch, has been empowering individuals to transform their lives using magical principles and her intuitive gifts since 1997. Sha is a high priestess in the Order of Blended Wisdom Coven, ordained minister, Reiki master teacher, certified neuro-linguistic practitioner, and QHHT practitioner, certified in shamanic healing from the Foundation of Shamanic Studies. For over 20 years, she's been a popular media guest, providing wisdom and live intuitive readings. Sha offers an empowering variety of in-person and virtual workshops on the topics of divination, healing, metaphysics, and more. Clients around the world turn to her for tarot and rune readings and to her intuitive wisdom for guidance and clarity. Ready to tap into your magic? Visit loonwitch.com.
Welcome back, my friends. You're listening to Inspired Conversations, and with me today is Sherrie Dillard of sherriedillard.com. So let's talk about repressed emotions because one of the things that I had to really clear up, and come on, the way the world is right now, we're always clearing this up. So, how does our repressed emotions and old wounds affect our, I want to say, like our intuitive and empathic abilities, which really is what we need in order to be a channel for abundance?
Absolutely. Yeah, I talk about that. I have devoted a fair amount of writing to that in this book. And in part why I did that is because it also repressed unconscious material that emotions we've stuffed down because they were too overwhelming at the time to fully feel, or we were young and we didn't even quite know how to process them. However, they got there. When we talk about spiritual consciousness and really for all empaths, intuitives, and sensitives, it's really important to release those that stuck energy because one of the things I talk about in the book is that when we have repressed emotions, a repressed energy within us, that's our strong charge. And that charge that we have, it's not just our present thoughts, it's really the unconscious old material in us that will attract certain people to us. It'll attract energy to us, that energy to us. It's kind of like, you grow up with an alcoholic parent, father, and you say, well, I'm never, ever going to marry someone that has a drinking problem or has an addiction issue. I'm not going to do it. And then you find yourself constantly involved in relationships where there's some form of addiction, even though your mind's saying, I'm not going to do that. That's again because our energy is drawing that to us. And the energy that we intuit is the energy that, what we're absorbing from our environment, from others, is more more likely due to our unconscious material than it is what we're conscious of. And that's why it's so important to release it for all empaths, intuitives, and sensitives. And it's also very important to release that in order to really allow that higher consciousness, that higher spiritual energy within us to really be the energy we're living in. Kind of like when you talked about the infinity symbol, I would say perhaps that crimp in the middle is a lot of times our unconscious material too.
Yeah.
It's, surfacing in a way that doesn't quite make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's any like how I received it, the message, and teach it is it could be anything. Like old wounds from my past money stories may still like sneak in every once in a while, and it's that emotional charge behind it. Well, to me, that's an energetic crimp, right? And but the
Mhm.
moment I tell everyone, it's that moment of awareness that you know where your energy is, that you have the power to choose a new energy path. Like to me, it's so empowering to know that once we are very aware of tuning into our own energy and asking ourselves, is this the energy we want to call forth into our lives, into our bodies? We get to choose in that moment. Yes, I'm going to keep the fear-based path, or no, I'm not. That's that moment when I have the infinity symbol in front of me is are my channels clear? Am I in my highest mm, sense of self? Am I in my highest sense of service? Am I in my highest self? It's almost like a reference point for me. Um, and it keeps me visually aligned. I actually have a gorgeous graphic that I share with my clients that just reminds them that you are the essence of all that is. And
Mhm.
abundance is in that same field. You are not separate from abundance. You are the abundance. That one, Sherry, took me probably 25 years to get that I am
Mhm.
abundance. We have about 6 minutes left, so I want to talk about. Um, let me see which question. It's so many yummy ones here. So, how do we receive the clear, pure, loving, and abundance of that higher vibration energy that we were just talking about? I use the infinity symbol, but everything you've taught us today is about aligning with that. So, in the few minutes that we have, can you give us some ways that we can do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
One of the most powerful ways I feel to align with that higher level, that higher consciousness, that higher vibrational power within us is to practice releasing and letting go and allowing, letting go and allowing. And what that requires is that we get out of our heads and trying to figure everything out. And whatever issue comes up, it can be minor, it can be a bigger issue, it doesn't matter. It can be something as simple as where will I get the money to make my mortgage payment? Or it can be something as simple as is going to that class in my highest good, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It can be big or it can be small. But when we get an issue that feels we can feel like, yeah, I'm not in that space where I can really have clarity for this, or I really need to look at this through a higher awareness and feel where I'm being led, or however it is, whatever it is when I go through chapters and exercises in the book where um, I talk about basically, I'll put it in a nutshell, and that is releasing it, letting it go. And one of the exercises is about things that you would say to yourself. You would say something like, um, and you would say it to that higher presence, that higher power within you would be, I'm releasing this issue about where money is going to come to pay my mortgage to that higher presence, that higher power, that flow of divine creativity. And then you let it go. I know that it's so hard to let go. I understand that. It's easy to say, it's hard to do. And that's why I go through a longer process in how to do that. And part of the process of letting go, and what makes letting go hard, is it feels so void, it feels so empty, it feels so like an abyss of just, well, now it just feels like kind of vulnerable and scary to me. Well, part of the letting go, the second part of letting go is allowing. And that allowing is becoming receptive. It's becoming kind of almost an inner awareness, knowing meditation of maybe repeating to yourself or saying to yourself that I am receiving. And that's why I said there is some mental um, abundant, what we look at as mental consciousness with affirmations, visualizations, that can at this point be used also when there's a particular issue. Not so much that we are depending on that visualization to produce it, or we're depending on that affirmation to produce it, but what we're doing is we're affirming that it's coming, and we are visualizing whatever it may be, because what we're doing is allowing. There's a difference
Yes.
between then allowing it to happen or feeling like it's up to me to create it now through these thoughts. It's a very big difference
I think
because
it's such an important way to close our conversation, though, because releasing, letting go, and allowing, to me, is that feminine energy of trusting. It's the divine source. It's the energy of all that is. When we're in that other energy, we're trying to force, which I guess you would call, the material mental energy. So releasing, letting go, and allowing, ladies, is, even though it sounds difficult, it's one of the most beautiful processes once you lean into it. And Sherrie, I'm so glad that you mentioned and reminded us that throughout your book, Raise Your Frequency and Manifest Abundance, are practices and supportive resources that our listeners can turn to. So I want to invite everyone, please continue this conversation. Get on over to Sherrie's website at sherriedillard.com. Follow her on all social media platforms. Grab a copy of this book, because the time is now, my friends, to honor yourself, to learn more about how you're wired to dance with the world and call in abundance. If I can change my life, my money story, my journey, you can too. So Sherrie, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a joy to have you back on the show again.
thank you so much. I've enjoyed it so much. It's been wonderful.
Well, thank you, my friend. Until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.